This is what I sound like without processing my voice, and this is what I sound like after processing my voice. Okay guys, today I'm going to show you exactly how I process my sound, all the way from the microphones that I use to the headphones that I wear. This video is not sponsored in any shape, way, or form. I am not an expert. This is just all I have come to learn by playing around in this field. So take my advice with a grain of salt, because I'm not an expert, but also trust me because, you know, I'm one of you guys. The main stages of this operation are your microphones, your audio interface, your digital audio workstation, your plugins, and then finally your headphones, something for you to hear the entire process on. So microphones, of course, if you want to, you can spend as much money as you possibly can on the best microphones possible. There's a reason they're expensive. At the same time, you don't need to spend so much money to get good sound. My first proper microphone was the ST800 by Pseudotech. It's a USB condenser microphone, but I needed something that was more flexible, and I'll come to that in a second. And so I upgraded to the AT2020 by Audio-Technica. This is my favorite microphone of all time. I've only used 4 microphones in my life properly, but this is my favorite microphone. There's a reason I don't use this all the time, and I'll get to that in a second. These two are the SM57 by Shure. They have been around longer than I have been alive, and there's a reason why they're still around. But I think you guys are more familiar with their older brother, the younger brother, the SM7B. These two microphones are cheaper than the SM7B, and in my opinion, better for what I want to do. I'll try and do a sound test with all the microphones that I have in another video so that you guys can see, well, hear the difference between all of them and how mixing can do a lot. Now, the reason why I use these two microphones over this is simply because this big boy is so sensitive. It's a condenser microphone, and so by nature it's made to capture more sound. It's just more sensitive, and I live by a very, very noisy street, and so if I'm not careful, you guys will hear every single thing. These two are dynamic microphones, and so they are a lot less sensitive, so you might just about be able to hear me, but that's like the brilliance of them. Sound is captured in this space, whereas this one, like, yeah, you feel me? So that's why I use these two over this one. If I had the privilege of having a studio of my own, you will see me use this one a lot more often. Even though I will recommend the microphones that I use, don't just pick them up because that's what I use, okay? You have to think about your own scenario, how the sound in your environment is, what kind of noise you'll be making, what kind of sound you'll be making, and then make your decision based off that. But those are the reasons why I've chosen the microphones that I use. Next thing, the audio interface. Now, I mentioned before that I had a USB microphone, and the reason why I initially changed from having that USB microphone to using a proper microphone with an XLR lead was because I needed something that was more flexible. When you start working with your sounds or whatever, you need a workstation, a software that allows you to capture the sounds from all your different devices. And in some cases, it's very difficult to capture devices from different kinds of inputs on your computer. That's where the audio interface comes in. If I was to be using just a USB microphone, I'll be restricted in terms of how many input sound devices I could have. Whereas with an audio interface, as many things that go into that interface, they can be sources of sound or audio into the software that I use. And if I haven't said it before, the software that you use is called a digital audio workstation, your DAW. I think people say that. So your audio interface is very important because it allows you to have your different kinds of inputs go into your digital audio workstation. In addition to that, it can also have some hardware features that make the sound that you produce cleaner or better for the software that captures it. Sometimes it's noise reduction, adding more power, changing the sound so like it's recognized as a human voice or something. I used to use the Scarlett Solo 3rd generation, but I upgraded to this big boy, this Scarlett 18i8, which allows me to have pretty much 8 different kinds of sound inputs. Each input can be either a jack or an XLR lead, which is very, very helpful. I can play guitar and have my microphones working for me. There's a reason I've set up the microphones like this, so I can showcase the coolness of the audio interface and what it can do. So microphones, audio interface, and your DAW, your digital audio workstation. I currently use Ableton. Technically, Audacity is a DAW, but I don't use it anymore because it doesn't allow you to process your sound and hear yourself as you process it. I was able to get Ableton I guess free of charge or bonus like, because I bought some audio interfaces. I haven't used many DAWs. I know there are better ones out there, but I'm pretty content with what I'm doing right now with Ableton. And maybe I'll upgrade in the future, but I'll let you guys know. If you guys want me to make an in-depth video on Ableton, just let me know. Put it in the comment section and I'll try and service that. Inside your digital audio workstation, you can have your different software solutions, your plugins that help you increase, you enhance, amplify, do all different kinds of magic to your voice to make them sound like something. This is what I sound like without processing my voice, and this is what I sound like after processing my voice. Now then, these are the main things you have to think about when it comes to processing your audio: noise, equalization, and amplification, or should we say dynamics, because sometimes you amplify, sometimes you quieten. Noise, equalization, dynamics. Okay, noise. All around you, things make noise. Heat, static, everything is making some kind of noise. Even you, when you speak, you might be making tiny noises that you don't know about, but maybe you guys can pick it up sometimes, or don't pay attention to it now that I've said it. But you could hear me sometimes making these little popping sounds, the sounds that my mouth makes. That's not from my voice. Now, we need to handle all these different things because they make the sound less beautiful. So there are two things that we do when it comes to noise. We have a denoiser, which is just software that reduces like the different statics that happen around, all the fuzz or whatever, just reduces it. Different frequencies have different kinds of noise. You've got an AC hum, you've got a static hum. We reduce these things, that's denoising. But also you've got a noise gate. And what noise gate does is says, if you're not making noise above a certain threshold, a certain level, silence. And this is especially useful to all these tiny sounds that you may make. The breathing, I mean, I breathe pretty heavily because I'm so close to the microphone and I do breathe quite hard. But if I'm breathing further back here, you see how bitty that was, because the noise gate has said, you're not making noise above this amount, so I'm gonna shut down. Denoise to get rid of the generic noise that's around, and the noise gate to shut everything down to silence. Like that. Right, the next thing to think about is equalization or frequency manipulation or whatever. Now, I don't want you to get confused. You're not changing the pitch of whatever sound that you're making, or your voice or instrument. You are simply allowing different frequencies to come out. If you have a very high voice and absolutely no bass about you, increasing the bottom frequencies will not change the pitch of your voice. You're only enhancing what is already there in your voice. That being said, if you enhance the lower frequencies with your voice, it gives a more full sound, a lot more comforting, a lot more relaxing. That nice grumble, that's what the low frequencies do. If you increase the high frequencies, the S's, these things become more prominent. So if you want a bit more clarity, if you want your voice to be heard, the trebles in your voice, you want it to be very distinct, the words that you're saying, increase the high frequencies. But it comes to the drawback, you have a lot of sibilants, which is like the S sounds that you might make with your teeth. If you increase the higher frequencies, you run the risk of making whatever you make sound so annoying. Next thing to think about is the middle frequencies. Now, I'll let you guys have fun with this and see whatever sound you might create by just changing, playing up with that. It might absolutely do nothing to entertain you, but I'll say that play with them, because they're fun. I'm going to put a link to all the plugins that I use. They are free. I don't be paying for plugins. No. What do I look like? Do you think I get money for the things that I do? No, you guys are not subscribed. I'm not getting money for this. There are obviously paid and more premium plugins, but I use the very simple and basic stuff, and I think I sound just fine. Dynamics. This is how loud or how quiet things are. You generally want to make sure everything's at the same level, that even when I'm speaking quietly, automatically it's made louder. Right? And if I start speaking very loudly, you can tell I'm speaking loudly, but it's not bursting your eardrums, or at least I hope it's not bursting your eardrums. And this is all done by a compressor and sometimes a limiter. And let me explain what a limiter is first, and then it might make more sense what a compressor does. So what a limiter does is stops any kind of noise above a certain threshold. It says, look, we're not going past 3 decibels of sound right now. So if you shout, I don't care. Clapped, right? That's what a limiter does. I can shout as much as I want, but the limiter will just, that's why these clicks aren't so loud, because the limiter just keeps kicking. You can then think about compressor as a smart limiter / amplifier. After a certain threshold, it starts limiting the sound that you actually produce. It won't shut things down completely. You can make it shut things down completely and make it like a limiter. But what you'd usually do is just say, okay, you're above a certain level, make it half as quiet. You're above that level, make that half as quiet. Ableton has some very native compressors in there, so I haven't had to like worry about it too much. And then at the end of your processing, you can chuck on any random effect you want to just add more spice, a bit more pizzazz. You feel me? So now we come to the last stage of this entire audio operation, your headphones. I understand there are headphones out there that are made for the consumer, made for listening pleasure, but if you want to hear things nice, get the headphones that are made for studio production, for you to hear things as true as possible. That way you know that, yeah, you're not bugging if you hear too much bass or too little bass. So even though these headphones are not the best when it comes to features, bells and whistles, there's no noise cancelling here, the microphone is quiet when I speak to people on the phone, the sound quality is brilliant. I think it gives me a very accurate representation. It allows me to hear different frequencies pretty well. I mean, use what you can if you have to, but at some point you're going to have to start thinking quite a bit about your equipment and getting the best possible ones for whatever you need to do. Right. I think I've spoken enough. I'm tired. It's been almost an hour. I gotta go. I'll make a video in the future about like getting all of this into TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. But for now, that's how I process my sound. Yes. I hope it's been helpful. See you later. Stay alive. Bye.